Hey, friend, welcome back or welcome to the Trend Report. I'm excited that you've joined me for today's conversation. I'm Sid Meadows. I'm a business advisor coach and longtime student of the office furniture industry. And my goal is to always share information with you that will help you grow and your business grow and to help you move forward each and every day. And I'm really excited for today's conversation as we dive into literally what I believe to be one of the most complicated topics in our industry, technology. And I'm excited to welcome our guest today, Kari Anderson with UX&Kari and the Techbox Collective. And together, we're going to try to break this topic down a little bit, maybe demystify some of the things out there so that we can all understand where we are and where we're going with this really important topic. Kari, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hi, Sid. Thanks for having me. I'm doing fabulous. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you. We planned this some time ago. I think you've been on my calendar for like 2.5 months or whatever. And I didn't remind you, but you showed up. So that's really good. So
After a holiday weekend,
I know,
too.
right? And this is like one of your most favorite topics, tech, right? Because that's kind of what you do. And so with that, tell us, Kari, what is it that you do today?
What I do today. So, as you mentioned, I have two businesses. So, UX and Kari is my one on one coaching. I call it my personal fitness plan. I entered back into the industry 7 years ago, 6 years ago. Time flies by. I'm sorry, not really good at keeping track of that. But I had started the industry as a commercial interior designer. I spent over 2 decades as a commercial interior designer at
Wow.
a major dealership in Minneapolis here. I went back to school for UX. It was such a fabulous transition for me because designing physical space to me is so similar to looking at our digital space. And upon graduation of my course, I was, going to totally leave the industry, Sid. I exhausted what every typical that I could create or turned
Yep.
over too many chairs in my life. But I had noticed that there was a need in our industry that we have many tech based people, but there was nobody really focusing on that user experience,
Mhm.
bridging that gap between the user and our tech partners and our softwares. So that's where UX and Kiri came from. So I spend my time there working one on one, primarily with the manufacturers in the industry. I do work with a lot of our software companies too, to bring in that user experience perspective. And my second business is Techbox Collective. I had found after my first couple years of consulting that I was having repeat conversations one on one with individuals, which brought me to that mindset of, hey, let's do a group fitness together. Let's work on and discuss technology amongst groups of manufacturers. Because honestly, the technology is not their competitive advantage. Their data is not their competitive advantage. It's their sales and marketing and that's what differentiates them. And instead of trying to build and come up with their own practices, they were able to have we are having actually conversations together now that can help build and grow that industry standards.
So business number one is basically one-on-one coaching slash consulting. I've worked with you in that environment before. And then business number two is basically group sharing, coming together as a community, specifically for manufacturers to talk about all things technology.
Yeah, those topics that, yeah, we can Google them now. I mean,
Yep.
Google and whatever GPT engine you're using out there, you can get a lot of information, but specific conversations, those topics of whether it's SIF, XML, what's a
Mhm.
category, that's what TechBox, we address those topics that are not
Mhm.
necessarily discussed across the whole industry.
Well, and I think it's important to talk about things in groups, right? Obviously, that's what the collaborative network is formed for, to have those kind of group conversations, share best practices, what's working, what's not working. Oh, I tried this new tech, or we found this new tech, and this is what it does. So you're sharing with the people that understand it the best way, right? So, why is it, Kari? It seems like this is one of the most misunderstood topics within our industry. And every time I turn around, I feel like I'm getting an email or a phone call from somebody with the new, latest, and greatest tech specifically for our industry. Why do you feel like our industry is ripe for new technology, or why do you think we need so many new technologies? Or are we just keeping up with what's happening in the world?
First, we are trying to keep up with what's happening in the world
Okay.
because if you look outside in your personal life, I'm not sure all the texts that you use, Sid, but I know around in my house, like I have adopted, I have Siri, I have
Hmm.
Alexa, I've
Hmm.
automated so many things, so I have expectations on my daily life. Even when you get into your car, right? Look at the technologies that are provided you just to get from point A to point
Hmm.
B. And then when we go into our workday, we're still dealing with challenges, right?
Hmm.
I can't get my audio to hook up. Zoom meetings are not connecting. I'm still manually editing or auditing pricing. Like
Hmm.
I feel as though I step back 20 years in my life sometimes when I
Hmm.
go to work in my day-to-day business. So specifically with our industry, we have some, I'm going to use the word antiquated processes of
Hmm.
getting business done, right? And we're in a very complicated industry. If you think of what it takes to specify, design, or actually design, specify, quote, order, ship, and install a single chair, it's
Hmm.
kind of a miracle, isn't it, that it
Yeah, it
gets
is.
there in one piece, and we're also able to bill and invoice that, right?
So it's funny. I was explaining to somebody that was not in the industry how complex our industry is. And I used a chair as an example about how many different options there were for just like a side chair. You could do the frame, you got the wood finishes, there's probably 20 or 30 wood finishes. You could paint it, right? Then there's the upholstery. You could do the seat in one color and the back in another color, right? There's nail heads, there's welt cords, there's all this thing. And this guy that I was talking to, you could just see his eyes glaze over. Like I had no idea how complex what you do actually is, which is, I think, the case for a lot of people. And technology is supposed to make our life easier. You mentioned things you're using at home. Yes, I got a whole bunch of techs. I need to take an inventory of the tech that I use. It's really interesting. I don't know, but it's supposed to make our life easier. Is the suite of products that we have today, does it really do that? Or is it making our daily jobs more complicated?
So, our suite of products, one by one, may be making that task easier.
Mhm.
But I think a biggest challenge that we have right now is those suite of products do not connect or communicate to each other.
Mhm.
So we use one tool, and then to get to the next tool, we may need to recreate the content. Or if you're collaborating with different individuals, they're creating different artifacts, and
Mhm.
that artifact does not integrate into my process or my
Right.
technologies and tools. So right now, from a super high level, I would say that's probably one of the challenges. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily our technologies. Where you brought up the comment earlier about there's new technologies coming into the
Yep.
industry. And I love that a lot of these technologies too are from outside of our industry, right?
Mhm.
They understand tech from a different perspective, but they maybe don't know the nuances of how our part numbers are created or lead
Sure.
times or warranties or things like that. Those technologies are not integrating into our
Mhm.
process and how we do things, how the dealership may be interfacing
Mhm.
with the rep group, with the manufacturer and the end client.
So let's use an example, a very practical example. So I'm working with an interior designer at ABC Interior Design Firm, and that designer is using Revit to draw out furniture and lay out what they want. I'm a dealership, and it comes to me and I start to draw it. I don't use Revit. I use a furniture specific software, whether it's CET or Syncly or some other tool, right? And then when I go to order it, the manufacturer is using a completely different software. In the case of Steelcase, they're using Hedberg. Hayworth uses something else, and XYZ uses something else. So what this really the biggest challenge we're facing right now is the three examples. There's no link to where they talk to each other all the way, and that's one of the initiatives that you're working on, correct, with the Techbox Collective is creating industry standards so that things can talk to each other all the way down, so that as a dealership seller or dealership designer, I'm only having to do my job one time and not multiple times. Is that a pretty accurate, Kari?
It's very accurate. And specifically when you started with the architectural side of it, the
Mhm.
A&D side of the business, they're creating the visual graphics. When we
Hmm.
think of Revit, Revit is a BIM-based software. BIM is Building Information Management.
Okay.
So we initially had started our industry way back in the AutoCAD days.
Hmm.
But now having the capability of our visual graphics to have data assigned to it
Hmm.
so that you know that part number, you know that manufacturer. But we have not bridged the gap between those visual and the data side from A&D to dealership. So the
Hmm.
dealership is recreating the drawing. They're
Hmm.
creating the drawing for the visual perspective and they're recreating the specifications for it.
Hmm.
And ideally, that specification rolls into a quote.
Hmm.
That quote then rolls into the manufacturer to manufacture it.
Hmm.
Techbox Collective is working on initiatives. Specifically, there's one called the Data Collective,
Hmm.
and it is currently being led by some thought leaders of our industry. We have some major manufacturers, open line manufacturers, technology supporters there that are working on these data standards so that we can ensure that the data will flow across no matter where you're entering into the
Hmm.
industry. How can that content easily flow through to the next user and
Hmm.
ultimately to that manufacturer so that we can manufacture the product,
Hmm.
deliver, ship, install?
Well, and the simplicity of that sounds amazing, but it also sounds like a huge undertaking. Like trying to get everybody to come together because there's over 3,000 plus manufacturers in our industry, right? And trying to get, and who knows how many different software options there are, right? But trying to get everybody to come together to agree on a standard and use that standard. I mean, talk about you're climbing a mountain, Kari.
I'm climbing a mountain. I'm not doing it alone,
No,
right?
that
There
we
are,
don't want to. We don't want to. We need ropes and picks and all these other kind of things if you're scaling a mountain, right? So you got a whole team of people that are and groups to come together to do this.
yeah, even when I practiced as an interior designer, I was not always the smartest one in the room, but I always found the smartest people out there that could help build and support
Right,
me, which
right.
is the Data Collective. We are bringing the smart people into the industry from the industry into the room to come up with these standards. We have manufacturers like our majors. They have 40 plus years of data standards, correct?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and that's what we also hear from our open line manufacturers. Hey, whatever the majors are doing, just tell us to do it and we will do it. So with the data standards, now we can actually have some published content
Hmm.
because it is tribal knowledge. Whether you are a dealership and there's some dealer principals that are retiring, right? We lose some of that tribal knowledge. Sid, you've hosted how many podcasts on these
Yeah.
topics or even at manufacturer levels? We're dealing with that same thing inside of our data standards of our industry. We've got some people that have been keeping our industry together that potentially could be, and I hope they do retire in the next few years, but we need to capture that content
Sure.
one as our baseline, but we need to innovate. That's where we're still being challenged by those new tools and technologies that are coming
Hmm.
into the industry here. So it is a pleasant balance, climbing that mountain, climbing it
Hmm.
together, and then weaving together how can we future proof, right?
Hmm.
To ensure that we continuously grow and improve our data standards.
So you mentioned future proof. So let's talk about the future for just a minute. Thank you for that explanation, by the way. What role is AI playing in all this? Because I was listening to a podcast this morning on my walk, and the guy said something relative to in this phase of AI or something to that. And the way it was insinuated was like AI had been around for 10 years. And I literally said out loud in my walk, dude, AI's barely a year old. Like you're talking like it's 10 years old. It's like barely a year old. So we're all still scratching the surface with what the heck this thing is. How do we use it? Is AI playing a role in what you're doing there? And if so, how?
AI has been playing a role in our lives more than a year. Like
Yeah,
we've been using AI. We didn't even know that we've been
correct.
using it, right?
Yeah.
18 months ago, Techbox hosted a webinar on AI. And I had some really great people that came in and shared some insight, but there wasn't a lot of conversation about it because we weren't openly talking about it.
Mhm.
At this past neocon in June, AI was probably the number one topic. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, it's very important. My ear is hearing it. I'm
Yep.
prompting the conversations with it. So we are seeing inside of manufacturers, they're using AI, whether they're creating their own chatbots, pulling their data together. I'm seeing our software developers using AI, not to
Mhm.
replace their staff, but actually to ensure that they're getting those mundane tasks done.
Yep.
They still have a human in the middle. They do not just use AI, anybody in our industry, right? You're not
Mhm.
just using AI and then releasing that content out there. You need the human in the middle
Yep.
to
100% you do.
review through it.
So what I find interesting about this is you said we've been using AI for years, and you're not wrong. Whether if you're Googling something, you were using AI, talking to Siri, you're using AI, right? Talking to Alexa, you're using some version of AI. I think what's new about AI is the consumer, direct to consumer facing versions. When Chat GPT came on the scene, all of a sudden here come dozens of other ones, right? Claude, Gemini, all these other things that all of a sudden now it's like face in front of us, like, oh, now everybody can use this. Where before we were using it as a consumer, but not using it as a tool. We weren't generating, if you will, anything from it. We were just using it. So it's the Wild West, isn't it? Just a little bit.
For sure is. Yeah, I would say in the past 6 months, even a year, is when people have become more comfortable
Hmm.
using those generative, like going and
Yep.
seeking that business to consumer. Like
Hmm.
that's a great way to explain it. And they're just scratching the surface because now to even be more successful at it, you have to be trained on it,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
It's not the same as interfacing with Google. Like you
No.
need to treat AI differently and prompt it to get that prompt engineering,
Hmm.
getting your
Yep.
information back in the format that you want.
So my favorite thing to do with I use ChatGPT predominantly. I use Grammarly. I also use Otter. I'm sure I'm using others, but ChatGPT is the one I use daily, if you will. And my favorite thing to do with it is to brainstorm with it and to like say, hey, I'm working on an article about our blog about this topic. Here's the framework of what I want to talk about. Then I ask it to interview me. And I'll say, ask me a series of no more than 10 questions about this topic. And then it'll start asking me, it'll ask me about a story of how I encountered something to this or whatever, right? And then out of that, I get a much better, more detailed framework of a blog rather than me saying to it, hey, which so many people do this, hey, write an 800-word blog about XYZ with these points in it. They click enter. Within a minute, you got a 800-word blog. They copy paste it and post it, which is to me the wrong way to use an AI tool. But I like to go back and forth with it and talk with it. So I think that's
I
a fun
think that's
thing.
an entry level of using AI, right? Write a email for me. Here's the body of the email that I need. And then going to that next level is exactly what you had described. And specifically, Sid, you and I were solopreneurs, right?
Yep.
We've got a lot of colleagues and friends in the industry, but sometimes I just don't have that coworker that I used to look over the
Yep.
panel, cubicle panels, right? And say, hey, can you help me out with this? So
Yep.
AI to me, whether it's GPT, Gemini, or if you have named your own AI agent, have you
Mm-hmm.
named your GPT?
So it's really funny. I was about to ask you that question. I have not named mine. Rex Miller has named his, and I forget what he told me the name is. It's a girl. Have you named yours?
I have not named mine. I'm a Gemini based one too,
Okay.
but yeah, if I was to brainstorm right now, when I think of Gemini, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's a zodiac sign. That's immediately where my brain goes. So,
So
I,
I did see a prompt. This was months and months and months ago. I saw a prompt that somebody posted like on Instagram or something where you could ask ChatGPT to introduce itself to you and then go through a prompt for it to tell you what its name was. And I did that, but then I don't know what I did with it, and I don't remember what it was a girl, what she said her name was to me. So, but it's interesting that people like it's like their best friend, like the hey Susie, how you doing today kind of thing.
It totally is. That creeps me out a bit, Sid, though. If I was to ask and it gave me a name, that's like a bad sci-fi movie.
Oh my gosh, that's great. All right, I don't want to stay too much on AI because we could stay here forever. But Kari, you talked about something that I'm super passionate about. I want to kind of go back to, and the word you used was education. So in your businesses, you're providing education to our communities in order to help maybe clear the mud up with this topic. So tell us, what kind of topics is it that you teach on or train on or educate on?
Yeah, primarily I work a lot with our open line manufacturers,
Mhm.
whether they're stateside in Canada, I've worked in Mexico, and I have a lot of connections that I've worked with over in Europe and Asia too,
Mhm.
which is really great because how would you have the visibility into what we are doing here? So if you also then look at Sid, you have these similar people that you're working with.
Mhm.
It typically is a VP of sales, VP of marketing that wears multiple hats when we're talking these open
Mhm.
line manufacturers. So not only are they trying to keep their sales and marketing focus, but they're launching new products. And coming with that launching of new products includes publishing their catalog data, which means, going into our specification and design
Mhm.
softwares.
Right.
So where do you learn about this? Like, if you've never used these tools, you're being told by dealerships that you need to be in there. So that is the education level of one, understand our industry tools.
Mhm.
So how can you talk with your rep groups out there of, when they're doing their lunch and learns? I don't train. I do talk about the process,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
So, for an open line manufacturer specifically, for them to understand the process, what does it take from getting their product data into a design and specification and effectively ordered? I really think it's very important for them to understand their data,
Mhm.
to own their data and the accuracy and the impact it can do for increasing their sales and business and save them time.
Thank you for that. And we'll link to the websites that everybody can see some of the stuff that you do. But I had a flashback memory when we worked together, and I called you and said, "Hey, I'm going down this path for this initiative, and I need somebody beside me to help me make decisions about things I know nothing about." And you would ask me this question, or I would call and say, "Kari, what is this? Will you please break this down for me? What is a source of truth? I've never heard that term before." And I've been in the industry for 25, 30 years, and somebody says, "Oh, you need a source of truth." I'm like, "What's a source of truth?" So just for practical, explain that. We're not going to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm just saying that to say that the things that you taught me through that process were invaluable and really helped to educate me to like shine a light on what some of this stuff is, because I'm a front facing guy, right? I'm a sales, a marketing guy. I'm out in front of the customer, whatever. Like, I'm out front, and there's so much. I'm gesturing. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm gesturing behind my back. There's so much stuff that happens behind the scenes that some of us just have zero concept. So, for simplicity, what's a source of truth and what does it do?
So, a source of truth, and I'm going to speak specifically for data,
Yep.
is that your source of truth is fed from, typically it should be in your ERP system.
Mm-hmm.
So that is everywhere that you have all your products,
Mm-hmm.
your pricing, your descriptions, everything that enables your business
Mm-hmm.
from a furniture manufacturing perspective. So, that being that source of truth, when you distribute your data to any platform in our industry, so whether that is CET, spec, worksheet, if you're working with a Syncly company,
Mm-hmm.
even going to my resource library, that is a set of data. If your source of truth is not feeding in and is basically a digital twin across all of the industry, we have some issues, right? We have inaccuracies. So finding whatever your source of truth is inside of
Mm-hmm.
your business. So whether maybe that's your ERP system,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it is your website, because a source of truth is also those digital pieces of your JPEGs,
Mm-hmm.
not just your product specification data.
Yep. Yep.
So own that source of truth and then being able to distribute that accurately, timely,
Mm-hmm.
consistently across all of those industry platforms.
So basically, it's the one tool that talks to everybody and shares your specific information, your product specific information to everybody in a way that they can all read it. So, and I don't want to keep going down that hole, but I do want to go back to a little bit of the very first of our conversation. So, this is a complicated topic, and it's a topic that changes every day. Tech changes every day, right? My wife's in technology. She's always talking about the tech things. You're in it. So, Kari, how'd you go from being a designer to like saying, okay, I love me some tech. I'm going to get into the middle of this and try to help people understand, user experience and break it down and create all this kind of stuff. How did you get to from drawing boxes, if you will, I'm simplifying drawing boxes, mind you, to like, I'm going to be a tech person?
It happened early in my career.
Mm,
So I went to university. I mean, if you add up the numbers, I've been in the industry for 30 years,
mm,
and AutoCAD was really just a new tool when I was at university.
mm,
So a year after I graduated from university, they asked me to come back to teach AutoCAD because our instructors, it wasn't native to them. So I think that was my initial spark for
wow.
me of really understanding and enjoying technology as that tool that's going to empower me to do my job better.
Yeah.
So throughout my career as an interior designer, any new tool or technology that came
Mm,
about, I was that first adopter. So
mm,
it just naturally transitioned with me. And I think that's also what sparked me to go back to school for user experience design.
mm.
Because being an interior designer, I mentioned this previously too. Like I've specified so many six-pack workstations. Like
Yeah.
that thrill was over for me.
Mm,
So I just really enjoy technology. I see how it enables our designers to do
mm,
better, to work harder and faster. The same thing with our
mm.
salespeople across the whole industry.
And that's really what tech is supposed to do, right? It's supposed to simplify things, make things easier, make things move along the process faster. We just got to get through some of the noise of all the different tools out there and which ones do I need? Why do I need it? How's it going to benefit me? And that's what I think, in my opinion, whether you're a dealer, a designer, a dealership, a design firm, or a manufacturer, you have to ask yourself the question, what tools are best for my business? They'll help my business move forward today, because you can't take on all the tech tools that are out there, because then you'll just be drowning in technology integration. You got to take on the ones that are going to help you today, and then make a path, if you will, to what'll help you in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, whatever it is down the road, that's going to help your business streamline and move forward. I think that's also relative to AI, the same thing, right?
Well, I think let's take it back to even our personal lives. How many apps have I downloaded in the past year, right? I take on all of these new tools and technologies.
Mm-hmm.
So, really coming back to an essential standpoint, too. So, just because a new bright, shiny tool or technology comes out there does not mean that you need to adopt it. Does it work within your process? If
Yeah.
it works within your process, how do you train yourself to be more efficient at using it? So
Mm-hmm.
I think there's more to than just technology. It is also the adoption rate of it,
Yeah.
it is the training of it, and
Mm-hmm.
ensuring that you can collaborate with it across our whole industry is
Mm-hmm.
very important.
So, do you think that manufacturers, answer this question two ways, please? Do you think that manufacturers and dealers need a tech person on their team?
Absolutely. So a tech person is really a vague description,
I know.
right?
I didn't know what else to call it. Sorry, Kari.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
need a
I,
techie on your team, right?
Yeah, you need a techie on your team of, maybe that's somebody in your IT
Mm-hmm.
department that is ensuring the safety and integration across the
Mm-hmm.
across it. I played a strong role as our change management leader when we
Mm-hmm.
adopted technology into our dealership. So that was really big when CET came about. I was an early adopter of CET and helped with the change management, not
Mm-hmm.
only inside of our dealership, but across our whole industry. I worked with,
Mhm.
it was Steelcase was my primary manufacturer, my line manufacturer that I worked with. And we had a dealer design advisory group. So, whatever we were doing in our dealership, we were also talking with other dealerships across the North
Sure.
American. It was just not US. So,
Yeah.
I really thank Steelcase at that time of taking a look at how do we adopt new technologies into our
Mhm.
whole ecosystem.
So the short answer then to my question is yes, a dealership and a manufacturer both need a technology related person in their business so that that person is the, if you will, I'm going to quote unquote, the source of truth as it relates to everything technology wise that can then teach other people how to use it, make sure it's being used effectively. You brought up a word that two words are really important. One of them is safety and security, right? To make sure that tools that you're using aren't doing bad things to your systems, right? Or spamming through emails. We've all gotten that kind of nonsense, right? And then the second thing is, and often overlooked, is change management and
Absolutely.
what has to be done, what change needs to be implemented into your business because you said I'm going to start using this tool, and there's a whole thing there related with that that I hadn't even thought about as it relates to we're talking here. But yeah, so you need a tech person that understands, that can teach and educate, and then help manage the change inside of your organization. And I know that dealerships specifically, have a lot of different people on their staff. They got this person, that person. And, having a tech person is not necessarily a revenue generating, but it sounds like to me, with especially the way the world is changing today, it's probably one of the most mission critical positions that you should have on your team. Would you agree with that, Kari?
Oh, definitely agree with that. And with that, whether it's the change management person, but I think this is everybody. Like if we were all to put our hands in the center and say, hey, I'm in, I agree,
Mhm.
is the accountability
Yep.
to to the adoption of technology
Right.
or using of technology. I think is also something that we lose sight of.
100%. So, Kari, I'm not really sure how long we've been talking because I lost track and I do not have a counter. But I have one last question that I kind of want to ask you about. When I saw you at NeoCon inside the Loftwall showroom, you were kind of doing a little tech meetup, and you asked me, along with several other people that were there, what's your biggest technology challenge that you're facing today? I would love to know what some of the things were that our community shared with you that these are my tech challenges. Can you share with us?
Yeah, some of the tech challenges, the ones that I shared for myself out
Mhm.
there was subscriptions. So, right, subscriptions and hard drive. And I was going down a rabbit hole. And
Mhm.
so that for me was on a personal level, but actually impacts my business.
Yep.
So when I was talking to individuals, it did split between that personal and also on their business side of it. So from a business side, when I talk about these open line manufacturers are, hey, we just don't know what to do. We don't
Mhm.
have support. We don't have the financial fundings internally, right? Of being able to invest into that.
Mhm.
And also, where is their source of truth? You when you have multiple conversations with people that come knocking on your door, hey, I got now something new to sell to you. I even experienced that at NeoCon. Is like, how do you warrant that this person that's trying to sell you a new piece of technology is
Yeah.
what you should be investing into? So I really think that that was a big conversation. Managing data
Mhm.
was another issue that I'm hearing a lot
Mhm.
that came up across at NeoCon. AI was definitely
Mhm.
another big conversation. And then the hardware perspective. I know I had brought that up, but there's big changes going on with hardware. One, we have to look at our accessibility right now. There's a cost to it due
Mhm.
to, what's going on globally to access those technology pieces.
Mhm.
But also, where do you get the resources to help you out? If you do not have that tech IT person and
Hmm.
outsourcing that and being able to invest into that. I know we're, what, a couple months for year end, but as manufacturers or even dealerships, when you're looking at your 2026 spend, what dollars are you putting towards your technology investment? What should you be looking at doing?
Hmm.
And I think these are just all really great conversations that we should be talking about together. Let's get some of the wins from those that maybe invested well, they felt like
Hmm.
last year,
Yep.
and how can people look forward and start doing some of those best practices?
So that's really great insights. And, you said something that hits a nerve with me. The bloomin' hard drive. If I get one more notice from Google, please don't be listening to me, Google, about my Google Drive is 80% full. You're just trying to sell me more storage, Google, but please stop it. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh. Eh, and
And by the way, Google heard you, and
I
you are going to
know.
have 6 emails when you hang up here.
Okay, so Google, if you're listening, I tried to create a shared drive to share for our collaborative group, right? Where we have all of our stuff in one location. It's called our source of truth, Kari. I have the highest level Google One membership, but that membership doesn't get me the shared drive. I have to go get an educational membership. I'm like, Google, what the heck? Like, I just want to create a shared drive for us to use rather than a shared folder. And I'm on my soapbox now. So, but that goes directly to what you were talking about at the very beginning about the user experience. I mean, sometimes things, it's just so bad that you can't find things that you need. You can't figure out how to do something. Literally, I had to Google how to get, how to create a Google shared drive because nowhere inside of Google did it actually tell me in my drive, tell me how I could create one. Isn't that
We
crazy?
live off, yeah, YouTube videos, right? I frequently throughout the day, I'm constantly Googling how
Mhm.
to figure something out. So we are fortunate for that.
Yep.
But which ones do I trust? Like I can
Oh, that's
get
such a
20.
great question.
Yeah, I don't know if I can trust that. But you brought up an interesting point is that's cloud-based storage.
Yeah.
Like we both, because you brought that up, we have how much content shared out into the cloud space.
Hmm.
And I specifically also brought up hard drive
Yep.
because in our industry, so many of our tools are
Hmm.
hard
Yep.
drive based.
Yep.
So there totally is that balance, and we are collaborating. I mean, if you take a look at our manufacturers or our dealerships are expanding. They're not just centrally located in one city, one
Correct.
state. They're connecting all across North America
Hmm.
for an example. So they have to be on a network base. Like how many of us have a
Yeah.
P drive out there? We
Yeah.
remember having those P and K drives, and to be able to
Well,
connect those datas.
and you saying that reminds me of something you said to me a long time ago is that as our industry migrates to the cloud, so I think people, even me, just assume that because I use the cloud, you use the cloud, everybody in my family uses the cloud, that our industry is on the cloud. But technically, we're not really on the cloud because we still have so much hard drive data that we have to have access to the P drive and other things you mentioned, right? So I think we have a long way to go as it relates to because it's going to change on a regular basis. But I'm grateful that there are people like you helping to guide the way and break down the complexities. Though I don't know that we demystified anything today, but I did have a really good time talking to you about this, and hopefully we shared some really good insights to the listeners about what's happening, what they need to know, where they need to be looking, and I guess I'm going to offer my advice, and I'd love for you to offer the last piece of advice about this. I would say to anybody listening, don't overcomplicate technology. Don't take on too much at one time. And if you're confused about what to do, you need to hire an expert like Kari to help you maneuver through the minefield that technology is today because there's so many options out there for you. So, Kari, what would you say is like a piece of advice you want to leave everybody with today?
Yeah, piece of advice is do not run away from technology, even whether that is 5 minutes a day. Just
Mm-hmm.
challenge yourself, try something new, figure it
Mm-hmm.
out, innovate, grow. And second is I am not a technology expert in the whole industry. There is a huge team, much like where you just asked, should a dealership or manufacturer have a technology expert?
Yep.
I just fit into one little gear into this huge moving
Yep.
process of the industry. So if I
I'm
don't know
opposite.
it, I know somebody else
I
that
was going to say
does.
that I guarantee you, if you called Kari with the question or called Kari to say, "Hey, can you help me with this?" and it's not her basket of tricks, if you will, she's going to say, "I can't, but here's somebody that you can talk to that'll help you with." And that's one of the fun parts about being a consultant, right? And be collaborating with each other is being able to refer to, "Oh, well, I don't do that, but I know somebody that can help you with that." I mean, I love that part of it, being a connector. So
Yeah,
fun.
totally that networked. And that's also I networked when I was at a
Mm-hmm.
dealership level too,
Mm-hmm.
right? I didn't
100%.
know and do everything. I was not a healthcare expert, but I knew somebody that could do it really well.
Kari, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you being here, sharing all of your insights. If our community would like to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
There is a couple different ways to contact with me. So one is email. Sid, I know you'll prepare and share that
Yep.
information, but definitely check out techboxcollective.com. There is an open lobby area there where you can engage, ask questions, and learn from others individuals. I think that's always just like a really great start from a community base. And then, yeah, directly connect with me. Love to chat with you, answer any questions, and hopefully we can work together.
So Kari is really active on LinkedIn. You can find her there as well. Be sure that email addresses, websites, LinkedIn address are all down in the show notes. She's always posting about like events that she's hosting, trainings and other things that are happening, and stuff she's doing with Alexander Stefos and others in our industry, sharing insights about technology. So please go follow Kari over there. Just remember that if you do connect with her or reach out to her, please let her know you heard her here on the Trend Report, and that's why you're reaching out. Kari, thanks again for joining us. Thank you for hanging in for this important conversation about the ever changing world of technology. Go out there and make today great, and we'll see you right back here in a couple of weeks. Take care, everyone.